That's the proposed name. This school should be strictly in Kabale district because he was proud of his roots to a global audience. He directly inspired me to love live television political shows like The Frontline when I was 18 years old. Till this day, James Alemi, an ardent follower of the show. James Bond in Fort Portal is watching us and says, thanks for the program, Charles. It's very sad to hear the death of our own Pan-Africanist, the late Shaka. I remember those days when we were struggling to get VOA on shortwave, Yes, shortwave 2, just not to miss him. May his soul rest in eternal peace. As per NRM, to regain the lost regions, it only requires to give the community services, not to apply the Kawempe North methods. James Bond in Fort Portal. Chris Tushabe, the old man Chris Tushabe, is watching us from Kasenda, and he says, Fungaro says that West Nile is marginalized without ministers, etc. That's why they will vote for NRM in 2026 so that they can get ministers.
No.
That's from an elder called Chris Tushabe.
From where? Tushabe is writing from where? He's from where? Writing from where?
He's writing from Kasenda in Kabarole district.
Kabarole district.
Yes. Then there is a photo here sent by Jane Kojo Kano, who says the above caption refers, update Honorable Fungaro that there is no longer opposition in Acholi region. Yes, this is of...
who told you? Who is that?
This is the welcoming of a lot of FDC members into the NRM. I see some of the former FDC members here.
Who are those ones?
I see Alioni, I see...
Alioni?
Is it Alioni? Yes, I think.
There's no Alioni in Acholi.
This is a call.
A call,
it is a call. Yes, a call, Anthony.
Yes.
I see Mapenduzi and others. These are former FDC people who are now in the NRM fold. And he says,
that there is no opposition
there is no longer opposition in the north. Just a moment, let me first take some messages.
Yes.
And then I need to bring in Charles Romushana.
You are not the moderator.
Someone, Ken Mutenyo says, it's misleading today to rely on the figures the EC chooses to declare as outcome to measure the strength of parties. For some unexplained reasons, a narrative of two opposing political sides in every election seems a deliberate move. After declaring the outcome from 15 polling stations had been thrown out, the latest gazette from EC has increased votes of some candidates. Unfortunately, we cannot talk of bases using the EC numbers. It's my opinion that we will never know the correct number of votes candidates get. That's Ken Mutenyo. Kakoza Samuel in Luwero says, whoever got shocked with NRM loss is unserious, especially in Kampala where it has been performing poorly. They deceived the president that Nambi had support, yet in reality, they ferried people to paint a picture of too much support to get money for campaigns. It's believed some people pocketed millions that were supposed to canvass for votes. It's a big shame to our mobilization team who got a campaign team from Wakiso. Simon Biamkama is watching us and says, OO is absolutely spot on this evening. The conversation is really insightful and heading in the right direction. It seems to me that the NRM chairman was misled by opportunistic individuals who had personal interests and were looking to benefit greatly from the by-election. These people might have taken advantage of the chairman's position for their own gain. Peter Kivazo is watching us and says, rest well, Comrade Shaka. You, Charles, and I enjoyed his generous hospitality in Washington, D.C. Yes, we did. Wow, I'm happy my uncle finally speaks his mind. It gives me hope. Kampala from 70, not for NRM. Bagwa Matthias in Mukono. Let me see. I think that's what I'll take for now. Caps, before I come back to you, let me go to Charles Romushana.
Okay.
As we move closer towards 2026, if you're a member of the NRM, all the preparation, all the attention now is being paid to the party primaries because they hold adult suffrage party primaries. So the focus is on that, and that should be happening within the next few months. If you're looking at the general election, the Electoral Commission roadmap is out and has set deadlines for when people should be resigning, when nominations will happen. But looking at the general picture in the country today, how do you see the play in a multi-party setting in terms of who has what strength where?
You know, God is great, God is merciful. The National Resistance Army does not prioritize the survival of what you call a party. It prioritizes the survival of the state.
What is the National Resistance Army? The last time I checked, that had ended somewhere in early 2000.
The NRA is there, the original. You should have heard Mr. Museveni's speeches. He normally calls the media. So it prioritizes the survival of the state. And as long as the state survives, they are there. Now, if you look at, because the topic is about the regions, formation of regional blocks. So let me not fall into the trap of Opondo. They tell him to dive into a swimming pool and he jumps there and he begins with the legs or the stomach. When, after the overthrow of Dr. Apollo Milton Obote, the coming in of Idi Amin and the war against Idi Amin, President Nyerere and the TPDF allowed Mr. Museveni and Foronasa to build in the western axis. Certainly because Mr. Museveni would greet in Runyankore, Mureireje, Murubuhoro. And interestingly, the actors of UPC were pushed to advance through Uganda, where you had the Paul Mwanga and the others. The ground that was very hostile to Obote is the ground where Obote was allowed to build. And Museveni took the western axis. But when Obote was coming back to rebuild UPC, it was done in Bushenyi. So you need to go and find out why in Ankole and why in Bushenyi. Because the resistance against and this would explain to you why you had the anti-sectarian law. You remember? The anti-sectarian law is not to say Fongaloho is your tribe?
You don't even know.
No. But if I said Opondo, you are a Mujapadora, that's not sectarianism. If I say the Honorable Kena is a Langi, that's okay. But you can't say Mr. Museveni is a Mchiga from Chiruhura. The moment you say he's a Mchiga from Chiruhura, that's sectarianism. More especially if you now go into Ankole and then you go into Bahima Beiru, it becomes a little bit. So the Beiru of, he had problems with the Beiru of Ankole, mainly Igara. Where you now have Manyamshega, Kayendo Tafire, that took on the political wing of the NRA. So the destruction of UPs, the establishment of UPs, the reincarnation of UPs, the reorganization of UPC in Western Uganda, one had the base area of the Protestant church. So if you are saying Honorable Bakena is going to bring back UPC, does he still have the base of the Protestant church? He doesn't. The Protestant church has been taken over by the NRA, and it's the NRA that gives vehicles. If Akena was try, at least you would give him them borders. I doubt you'd be able to give them those four-wheel drive cars. UPC was not destroyed politically. UPC was destroyed through military means. So it can again become national if it's able to build a military base. And the circumstances are extremely very hostile, at least in the short run. Now, has NRA collapsed in Uganda? So what was the base area of the NRA in Uganda? The base area of the NRA in Uganda, the areas of Chiboga, the areas of Nakaseke. Why? Their base area was not in the Baganda. It was in Uganda, yes, but not in the Baganda. And if you go and check in the last elections, the opposition against Museveni got 1.9 million votes, and Museveni got above 1 million votes in Uganda. Where he got 36%, he still got 1 million votes. The other guy did not even get 2 million votes to say that he got Museveni. So that means Museveni retained his base area. The best area was not largely impacted. It was not adversely impacted. He still got his 1 million votes in the Chiboga areas where they are cattle keepers and where they greet Oreireje, Buhoro, etc. Now,
what was his performance in Kampala, around the Kampala area, in terms of in numbers?
Of course, you see, you need Kampala, you need Wakiso, you need Ankole. In terms of populations, if you have that, then you are good to go. So he has Bushenyi, he has Ankole. The entire opposition cannot take away even 10% as we speak of Ankole. Why? Because they don't have terminals. Because you see, to have a constituency, you also have to have a character. You must build those characters and sellable characters, sellable candidates, which I think is not been able. Now in Lango, UPC is in Lango because you heard what Mr. Museveni said. I don't know if you remember, Mr. Kena, when he said we have used the Ngoni Horn formation. So UPC was not pushed into Lango politically. It was pushed into Lango through military means. So it's still military means. It's not about politics. Now, BSJ comes in, and therefore FDC, because they were seen as a liberation organization. They branded themselves as a liberation organization against the NRA state. That was the lie. And there was belief that because BSJ was a Kano, actually it's what he was saying. He was formerly a Kano, therefore a soldier would take on Mr. Museveni.
Was that a belief or a matter of fact?
No, where? Fact and where?
Was it a Kano?
No, I mean to say that because he was a Kano, therefore he would challenge the NRA. Actually, he used to tell us in Rukunjiri that 90% of the army was behind the Besigye. And all Mr. Museveni needed to do was to put him on handcuffs, parade him around Rizira town, the Rizira in town, and take him to prison. And see whether there was an army to rescue him. That's the only thing Mr. Museveni needed to do. He did it successfully, and the best general started applying for bail. So if you have 90% of the army, and they can't rescue you from... so that line collapsed. And then, of course, Mr. Museveni proliferated Kyagulanyi. Why? You see, we had a strategy that you don't arrest Cecily Ogwara. You don't beat Cecily Ogwara.
What do you mean when you say we had a strategy? You and who?
You don't know why I worked there. Now you want me to go into those really? There was a strategy of the NRA that you don't beat Cecily Ogwara, you don't arrest Cecily Ogwara. Because when you do, the other reverse psychology, you make him popular. So if Akena now was to go to Bushenyi, was to go to Kasese, they will not deploy the army. Because you know when you deploy the army, you make him, you brand him. So they will do that for Kyagulanyi, and they did it for Kyagulanyi to destroy Besigye. Now Besigye is no more. You now need to go and find out why is it that when the Besigye was exiting FDC, he had to destroy FDC. He could have gone for his PPF, but without necessarily destroying FDC. And what he went for, they just arrested him within 2 months. It's gone. What he was trying to, that seed of his he was trying to plant, it collapsed just merely by arrest. Then how about UPC that faced 5 years of brutal guerrilla warfare, where terminals of UPC were butchered in Ruwero? They were killed in Ruwero. And so they therefore cannot recover unless they organize through military means. The NRA has a national character because it has the state. Yes, you see, at a district level, it builds around the RDC and the DISO. And at the sub-county level, it builds around the GISO, the Gombera Internal, yes, the Gombera Internal Security Officer. So where you have got organized communities, then they face some bit of resistance. Now, we also talked about regional blocks. Are you talking about regions in terms of geography, or you are talking about tribes?
You can pick it from where you want.
Or you are shy to talk about
the interpretation is yours.
No, it's a topic.
Where you want to frame your analysis from is yours.
A region is a region.
Yes, a region is a region.
It's a topic. So if you're talking about Lango, are you talking about Lango, the geography, or you are talking about Lango, the Langi?
What is your understanding of it?
So if it is because you need to check where you have regions and you have tribes, how Mr. Museveni has proliferated cultural institutions. The cultural institutions. So you have Kasese, his contradictions, his problems, his reconciliation, his love and hate with the Obsinga, and then you have your Toro, you have the kingdom there, the cultural institution, but then you also have Chisoke speaking for police. So there is some face of Uganda police there.
Who is Chisoke? You are referring to
the spokesperson of police, Rousseau, spokesperson of police. Rusoke. Then you have the commander land forces of the army. He has to be visible. So you now have the Batoro see themselves as shareholders in the army, and then you have IGP Bunyoro. The prime minister is in Bunyoro. That's how he is maneuvering, manipulating the politics of deception with the tribes. You have the speaker, and then it's like the Bateso now are in, they are included. The inclusion is through the elevation of individuals, not the elevation of the people as a whole into...
Thank you. I'll come back to you in a moment. Tom Bojana is an elder.
There are issues which you read there need to be answered
yes,
before you read the others.
There are more for you. It took more than 10 years to hold elections under the so-called multi-party system. NRM all along had been using those LCs as their grassroots structures. Tom Mbojana. Laban is watching us from Kitagata. Laban Muhawe says, my friend Fungaro, please mobilize for individual merit so that we remove divisions in Uganda.
Is that the Laban of police?
Yes,
the
Laban of police, yes. Yeah. Laban Muhawe in Kitagata. Formally.
I was with him in Mweya.
Yes, he's been retired for some time. Job Richard Matua, Assistant RCC Arua City. NRM lost Buganda and we must objectively accept that. We can reclaim Buganda, but starting with rural Buganda. This calls for going to the ground to understand the issues. I thank President Yoweri Museveni for going to Kiwoga over land issues, which is a core factor in NRM loss in Buganda. Job Matua. Jeff Bidandi is watching us and says, NRM is a mass party. Gets open to new members. NRM is very competitive in primaries due to the weight attached to its ticket. NRM has to clean the primaries elections because they sharply divide the party support. Then NRM has to move closer to the young population drifting to opposition. NRM has to rebrand as a party to accommodate all warring factions within the party and accommodate dissenting voices. Jeff Bidandi. Scholar Itanga says, I am happy to see Charles Romushana discussing in English. Thanks for the program.
But you can it is very heavy English.
Talibita Moses says, please let Akena paint a picture for us who never saw UPC and its works. What is their plan for being an everywhere political party? What does its UPC offer now that makes it measure up to the current times or problems? I'll hand it back to you, Fungaro and...
First of all, I would like to thank the people of Buganda for waking up to the reality that President Museveni's government deceived them and misused their support, which they gave the NRA, NRM during the Busu War. When we, people from the north, first rose up and told the Ugandans that Museveni is not a good leader, his government was sectarian, tribalistic, and undemocratic, we voted for a new person in the names of Dr. Paul Kawanga Semugerere, as you stated, I think himself. And then in 1996, under the 1995 Constitution, the first voting, majority of the people of the North voted for Dr. Paul Kawanga Semugerere, followed by Dr. Besije in 2001. But in those votings, In Buganda here, people voted for NRM, quote unquote. In the subsequent elections, Museveni would come up to the north and tell people that you people, even if you refuse to vote for me, I have my voters in Buganda and in Western Uganda. You are very few, your population is small. You go ahead, vote against me, I have my Buganda. So today, the region of Buganda is clearly against Museveni. So Buganda, thank you very much. Keep it up. Again, Busoga is moving in that same trend. So we would like to say, let Buganda keep it there. For us in northern Uganda, we are now.
And I will put back. I will put back the question to you.
Yes.
What role are you playing as a political party?
I am going
to
there.
Facilitate that movement.
I'm going to that point here. Now, for us, what we are going to the north is to tell the people of the north that you see, President Museveni ran here and discouraged you from voting against him on the assumption that Buganda was going to vote for him, even if you vote against him. Now that you have seen, Buganda has never voted for Museveni, and Buganda is not going to vote again for Museveni again. Do you still want to vote for Museveni? Should you be, you northerners, both in the civil population and the army, should you be the one to defend Museveni against the threat from Buganda when Museveni made you to suffer all these years? So this time around, be assured, Buganda is not going to vote for Museveni. So let's go back to the election of 1996, 2001, 2006, where we vote massively against Museveni, just in the north alone. So Buganda should take care of the issues of Museveni in Buganda, the way they've done already in 2021. This is the regional policy you're talking about.
Yes.
We are giving Buganda the direction it has taken. We say, okay, Buganda, go ahead. Then Busoga is going in the same direction. Lango there, UPC, take charge there. In Iteso, FDC will be there. In Acholi, FDC will be there. Now let me come to Acholi. This thing of defection of people should not deceive you people. Defections in Acholi do not affect the voting. Acholi people are political conscious people, even to the smallest person in the village. Secondly, there were people who defected before. Those who defect are always immediately replaced by people from the opposition. Let me give you examples. Honorable Michael Ochula, the MP for Clark, the predecessor of Honorable Cole, before Clark was divided to north and south, was FDC. He defected and he was replaced in both constituencies by FDC people. Honorable Achiro Konsi, Achiro defected from FDC to NRM. He was replaced by Lucy, Honorable Lucy, the current MP, as FDC. You go to Kitigum, Honorable Beatrice Anywar, defected to NRM and he was replaced by Honorable Onekalit. So those people who have just defected to NRM, first of all, have not gone with the population of the FDC. I'm the one in charge of Northern Uganda. I'm from there. There are already candidates, are good candidates lined up to replace those people from the side of the FDC. You wait and see what is going to come from Amuru. Amuru people are political conscious people, actually generally. And President Museveni has gone to the north to brainwash the minds of the people of the north and Teso using the same formula that you are already eating. Because the Chief Justice is from the north, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Honorable Norbert Mao, is from the north. You are now here, you are included. But I am happy to know that the ordinary Acholi in the constituencies, in the villages, don't celebrate these appointments of their sons in the big positions. They don't honor these crossings. That's why people who cross from Acholi to go to NRM are replaced by opposition people immediately. So rest assured, the opposition is still strong in Acholi. Secondly, the issue of the army. One thing we must admit is this. We have not sufficiently addressed the issue of the use of the army in politics. Actually, I can say that we have never had, NRM has never had any equal competitor in elections. This thing is not elections. It's military operations. If it's supposed to be a real operation like this, let each opposition party have its own army, like the one of NRM. And then we see. Now, listen to this. This voting you talk about in Western Uganda, that Western Uganda votes for NRM from 7 is a lie. In my post-2021 election assessment, performance assessment, I moved in the whole country with my party president, the Secretary General. I was in Western Uganda for 8 days. I discovered something which I never knew before. People in Kazo, Kiruhura, Rwampara, Mbarara, even including Busenyi, told us, Fungaro, for you people, you are better in northern Uganda. You vote. At least you vote. For us in western Uganda, we don't vote. You report to the polling station, they beat you up, beginning from the primary election, people die. It is the ruling family, the generals, who decide who first of all become a candidate. Then how many votes you get. You reach a polling station by 11 in the morning, they tell you, don't go there, we are finished, the voting is over. You have not voted. They tell you the voting is over. And then wait, when they count, they say, M7 got 90%. And then of this may be 99% of the people turned for the voting. Even you never voted. So this thing of Western Uganda is just forgery. There are people who are down.
We'll interrogate that in a moment.
There are people in Western Uganda who don't have the opportunity like the people of Obongi. For someone to speak for their grievances.
Is from Western Uganda.
These are liars. These are the same liars, planners, propagandists of Museveni.
Let me come to James Sakena.
Against the people of Western Uganda, and then you declare results.
Let's come back. Let's come to James Sakena.
So for me, my brothers in Ankole and sisters, I have heard from you. I know you. I have told the people of Northern Uganda that don't blame all the people of Western Uganda. There are people who are downtrodden down there. Let's go there, unite with them and liberate them.
Let's pick it up with Akena. There were some comments that came to you that I would like you to respond to, but also to the broader question. What kind of, is there a possibility going into the next election that political parties will find a common platform? You said at parliamentary level the discussion is different, at presidential level the discussion is different. But I've also heard that you intend to run for president, do you?
Yes.
And so at what level will you hold the negotiations? What are you putting on the table?
You see, presidential Ugandan constitution provides a 50+1. So the winner must have 50% of the votes plus one extra vote. Now, with that as the formula, if at the end of the election nobody in opposition comes close to 50%, the result will be the same. But if you get a situation whereby the votes, for example, somebody has 10%, somebody has 30-something%, and then it aggregates to more than 50, the second round will be determined by the top two candidates. So it is not a danger in itself that dividing the vote will cause an immediate negative effect. So for presidential, I do not see the problem because of that mathematical formula. But when it comes to parliamentary, anyone is first past the post. That is where I think a lot more caution needs to be done, that we should not be dividing our votes carelessly around that issue. On the presidential, it will aggregate to the same question. It will come back down to the same thing. If we are in a situation whereby we don't have a 50+1, then we'll go for a second round, and that automatically means there'll be some level of interaction or cutting across the board. Now, before I leave this, there's something which Romushana raised, talking about the sectarian issue. One issue left out is Anyanya. Who's an Anyanya?
People, we used to think they had very big ears.
Now, it was used, it was even a song, but it targeted a certain section of the society. So, those are things which we also need to interrogate as a country. If you say that in the Western there are certain phrases or people you cannot mention, you'll be sectarian, I also think Anyanya should be in the same category. Because Anyanya targeted negatively
people of the North.
People of the North.
Yes.
People of a certain ethnicity. And this is a heritage which we have to deal with as a country. So that question needs to be addressed. Then on the to my brother Fungaro, for us we're not only on grievances, we must also capture the aspirations of the people. And that is where you can actually retain the membership. Grievances can bring people together on a particular issue, but how to move forward, we need to really be able to capture the aspirations and the hopes of the people of Uganda. And I think that's what we need to share as political parties. A clear vision of where we should be going. Yes. The challenges which people face. You find people, in many cases, you think that the only danger we face is militarily. Because a lot of investment goes to the military, a lot of expectation is in the military, but then you have these forces which have been created, like the JAT, which is supposed to deal with the hardest of the terrorists who are coming against Uganda, are now being used against an election. So there we're missing the point. We've invested heavily on the military side to deal with the military problem, but we apply it to politics.
Let me go back to political party organization. Every election, your party, the UPC, the Democratic Party, even the Forum for Democratic Change, National Unity Platform, and the other general parties in the opposition, they say the argument has been, are you able to field candidates throughout the country? Number two, are you able to have agents, your agents protecting your vote at every polling station across the country? If you're not able, then you're going to rely on the collective effort, where one political party said the National Unity Platform has demonstrated strength in Buganda sub-region. You say, let them take care of matters there. UPC has demonstrated a base in Lango sub-region, let them be there. How do you see that playing out going into the next election? Because you scatter your efforts all over the country and you cannot consolidate. And then at the end of the day, you're not able to hold you're not able to push the election to a rerun.
You see, the truth is the system which has been put in place is not workable. And I'll give you in the sense in this, that we have failed to hold elections for LC1. It has been postponed on, I think, 3 occasions. Yes, it also has affected the Women Council elections. Now, we have NRM created this structure where it was using the state to fill this structure, where I disagree with Romoshana, but this was the government funds were used to create this structure. That was the NRM structure. For 20 years, where parties could not. Now, if as a government we are failing to conduct these elections, and yet as a party I'm supposed to mirror, I'm supposed to have a structure which in every village mirroring the national structure, and we're failing to run it. In other words, what was created was impossible for the parties to be able to fulfill, and that was the purpose for it. At the time when it was created, NRM was fused completely with the state. It is still fused, but in that particular instance, it was fused and the funding was there. That was how it was able to run. Now, we've come to this situation whereby we have had situations where parties cannot fully function, including NRM, and that is how we've been able to make some grounds in the iPod discussions on trying to get parties to be functional and to be able to function even between elections. Because a lot of the situations we get is also, and this affects NRM also, that there's a period where they disappear. Even offices get closed. Then when it comes this 1 year to election, we spring back to life, go through these processes, and then after election disappear. Where political parties should be active throughout. But part of it is that what has been created is a system which was designed to make it impossible for parties, but now NRM has found themselves also equally in that same situation, whereby there's a slight gap.
As political parties,
there's a slight gap between the NRM and the state today.
You're receiving some subvention from the government as political parties under the Political Parties and Organizations Act.
Yes.
And that is supposed to keep you functional throughout the 5-year cycle, not just to emerge at election time and then disappear.
Now, that is some of the discussions which we had under iPod on the question of the funding.
An authentic Chigezi, Ugandan and African voice on one of the biggest platforms in the world, on the Voice of America. We celebrate Shaka Sali for his contribution to journalism and the talk show world and the media profession broadly. My name is Charles Mwangu Shampagi, and this evening on the NBS Frontline, we discuss the jostling for blocks, different Ugandan communities as we head towards the 2026 general election. Who is positioning for the Buganda region? How is the contest shaping up there? Who is positioning for the Lango sub-region, Acholi sub-region, and the other traditional regions of the country? How is that shaping up? West Nile, is it moving together with the rest of the north? How do things look like there? We'll be discussing that. And my guests on the NBS Frontline, I have one frontliner, Ofwono Opondo, all the way from Kapelebyong, from Molanda, and from Chagwe. Very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles. Talking of Shaka, Sali, I wonder if you will make 29 years hosting a show like this.
I've already covered some significant ground hosting shows in the country.
Yes.
I hosted the Fourth Estate for quite many years, the KFM Hot Seat, the Frontline, and the NBS Face Off. I think I'm making my contribution, and I've made my contribution.
No, I was talking about one platform for 29 years.
29 years. He actually hosted it from 2000 to 2020, so 2021, so 20 years hosting. I think I've done already a little more than half as a talk show host. Not the same platform, but the talk show host. Thank you.
Well,
very nice to have you. Ofwono Opondo
step.
is also the executive director at the Uganda Media Center. We have Charles Rwomushana. People still mistake me for Charles Rwomushana. They call me Charles Rwomushana. and there is Paul Emodu, who I believe should be watching. He's always been demanding for many years, why don't you bring Charles Rwomushana to the front line? And every time we bring you over here. So Paul Emodu, I believe you're watching. You're Charles Rwomushana. He's on the show tonight. Very nice to have you, sir.
The Almighty God of all creation is great and exceedingly merciful.
Thank you. When do you bring in that other thing? Al Nakaba, is it?
They are having some issues in South Sudan.
And some
The
issues.
South Sudanese now are facing the Nakba.
But the UPDF was retreating from there.
Retreating?
I think it was supposed to be retreating from there for deploying without clearance from the United Nations Security Council.
No, the South Sudanese are facing an Nakba.
Okay. That was Riek Machar complaining about that deployment. But Salva Kiir was celebrating it.
No, there is no retreat because UPDF is in South Sudan at the invitation of the government, the legitimate government of South Sudan. The legitimate government of South Sudan is led by His Excellency Salva Kiir. Mayardit. So there may be people complaining. That's okay. The government of Uganda, together with the government of South Sudan, will attend to those concerns, and hopefully they will be harmonized.
No, you see, the government of today...
Can I introduce you before we begin the discussion? We're not discussing the UPDF in South Sudan on the show tonight. I have Fungaro Kaps Hassan from Obongi, West Nile. Very nice to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I salute you, my dear brothers and sisters who are tuned into this program, my beloved people of Obongi, as he has mentioned, and the whole of northern Uganda. I'm indeed Honorable Fungaro Kaps Hassan, Deputy President of the FDC in charge of northern Uganda, and MP Emeritus of Obongi constituency. Thank you for this opportunity.
Okay. And last but not least, I have from Lira Municipality. Hey, it used to be Lira Municipality, now Lira City.
Lira City now.
Lira City. President of the Uganda People's Congress.
Which faction?
Pardon?
Which faction?
He is the president of the Uganda People's Congress. Very nice to have you, sir.
Charles, thank you very much. I think Ofwono Opondo here is trying to look for problems as if he doesn't have enough of his own. But if he wants, we can always add to for good measure.
Mr. Mamusha,
The Honorable James Akena.
He belongs to the faction of UPC that Ofwono Opondo is protecting.
Ofwono Opondo used to be a member of UPC, from what I heard. From what I have heard, hosting the show here, they have said he used to be, and his father was a very strong member and the chief of the Uganda people of the Congress.
Was the chairman of the Congress of what was Toro district, which is now Tororo, Busia, Butareja, Parisa, Kiboko, Bodaka, and Butebo. Yes, for 4 years, 1981 to 85. And he delivered all the constituencies of Toro, then there were 5, to Parliament, UPC members of Parliament. My brother Akena is unlikely to deliver that much.
Very nice to have you. We're discussing politics. We're discussing politics and politics. I have the vice president of FDC for Northern Uganda. I have the president of UPC. I have, you just described, that former Tororo district looks like an entire region today.
Yes, it's what they call Bukedi.
Bukedi.
But you are here having immediate former spokesperson of the NRM.
Immediate former spokesperson of the NRM?
Yes.
When did the changes happen?
This morning.
Former spokesperson of, now the spokesperson of NRM is Dombo. This is about 4 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. That's when the changes happened?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think happened this morning?
I think he was saying is the immediate spokesperson. I thought
immediate former.
I thought they dismissed him. So
gentlemen, let's get into the let's get into the discussion. A lot of discussions are going on. We have seen you, Jimmy Akena, rallying your people in the Lango sub-region. There is a resurgence of the red color in the Lango sub-region especially, but we haven't seen much of you outside of the Lango sub-region. We saw what was happening. The Buganda Parliamentary Caucus was holding a meeting and trying to reactivate its position, its influence in the politics of the country. And we see other formations happening. He says he's in charge of the entire northern Uganda. As we move towards the 2026 general elections, I would like to hear from you, to begin with you. Is the strategy to own particular parts of the country, or will the strategy be to mobilize the entire country? And how will you do that?
Strategy definitely is to mobilize as much of the country as you can. The fact that we began where we have a base does not in itself mean that we're going to confine ourselves to the base. It is just at a starting point, something where you can qualitatively see how you can work on the mobilization strategies, which through the misfortune was also gave us opportunity to try it out for both the Oyam North by-election and then the Dokolo by-election. So as far as mobilization and the strategies, I think we're quite set. And consolidating the base, definitely we've been working on that one, as has been seen of recent. But I've also been outside of the Lango sub-region. We've also started mobilization in the Chole sub-region, also in Teso, on the side of the rallies. But there's also been quite registration going on for the party, because we're going to renewing all our electoral processes from the village all the way to the national, to the top level. So there's a lot going on as we try to prepare ourselves for 2026. But I'll not want to put it that we're trying to regionalize or the like. It's just facts of what's on the ground, and that's the starting point where we are, where we began from.
How does it play out? How do you see it playing out with the other players within, especially the political opposition?
I think within the opposition, we have seen where our strengths are and where we're lacking. And it will be in our best interest to approach, especially the parliamentary elections as they come around, in a very sober way, that we do not create opportunities to lose seats, because that is where, at parliamentary level, is where I think we'll need to be a lot more careful, and at also lower local government. But as far as the presidential is concerned, the law in itself, I think, caters for that. So there shouldn't be a lot of concern.
How do you mean you need to be a lot more careful? What exactly do you mean?
At parliamentary, it is the person with the majority, a simple majority. So if you split the vote, you can get somebody going through with even 20% or less than 20% of the vote.
Can you be say for a kind of a collaboration with the other members in the political opposition? You have been having an understanding with the NRM party, so where does your collaboration fall? Where do you see it falling?
In elections, we have always operated as a singular party. There's no point in the elections where we have been in a coalition of sorts. We have tried under what was first the IPFC, then we've had different attempts within the opposition to come across on a joint platform. But it's always been difficult to determine how to select the candidates and on what basis those candidates will be selected. I think basically what is coming out is where there's more strength is something which we need to look out for. But the point which I'm making is to prevent the outright majorities which cause sometimes Parliament to look like a rubber stamp institution. I think that is where, as political parties or political players, we need to approach the election in a sober way and look at how best we can be able to consolidate our voices such that we get better representation and more accountability for whichever government is in power.
Honorable Fungaro Kaps Hassan, looking at the state of political parties, you represent the Forum for Democratic Change. There is another political party that says it wants to replace or remove, deregister, erase the FDC called PFF. UPC has a collaboration with the party in power. DP has an MOU with the party in power. Can you reasonably build regional blocks? And I want to add something. The FDC, for example, used to have significant strength in parts of the country. A lot of that has since been has since ebbed. You can't locate a particular base for the FDC today. How do you build from there?
Yeah, thank you very much. FDC is a party of the aggrieved people, people who have grievances, people who have desires for change. These grievances have not reduced, actually they have increased. And FDC is a national party. Indeed, we had some bases where we had a strength across the 4 major regions. If you go to Rwenzori, we had Kasese, and you come to the north, we had Acholi, you had West Nile. You go to the east, you have Teso, you have those places there. Now, for us, we would like you to rephrase the question. The question not only to be limited to the strength of a particular party, but also to include the issues that drive the pattern, the likely voting tendencies of the people. What are the issues driving the elections, the voting of the people, and will these issues put the people, first of all, you divide the voting into 2. Will the issues put the people in the hands of the ruling party, NRM, or will the issues push the people to the side of the opposition? Then when you go to the opposition, that is where you can now go to see who is there in the opposition, which parties are there. That's where you see FDC, you see UPC, you see NUP. These are our partners, and regardless of what kind of friendship they have with other people, where we can cooperate with them, we shall cooperate with them. And we ask them also to look at us in that perspective of partners rather than enemies or fierce competitors. FDC...
Doesn't that move you away from pluralistic political competition and almost takes you back to individual merit? Because if you stand in West Nile today, you can no longer call it a base for FDC like it was when you represented Obongi County. If you move to Teso sub-region, the strength of FDC as a political party has significantly reduced, at least in terms of elective positions. You'd say the same for Kasese in Western Uganda, you'd say the same for Rukunjiri and other places. So if you do not have a place you can call a base today, what do you take to a negotiation with other political players to say, organizationally, structurally, this is where we feel we have strength, and this is the collective strength we can bring together on the table to mobilize the broader grievances that you're saying will drive people from the ruling party to support the side of the opposition?
First of all, beginning with the Obongi and West Nile as a whole, if you look at the people representing West Nile in Parliament today, and you take that as the basis for measuring whether there is opposition or NRM, then you get it wrong. For example, there are places like Obongi, where NRM never won. They robbed it broad daylight. You go to Terego, you go to Arua city now, It was a municipality then. People like Honorable Wadikasiano, people like myself, were out of parliament not because people rejected us. You go there and check today the tendency. You are researchers. You do your research as journalists and find out the inclinations of the people. So West Nile is predominantly opposition because the grievances of the people of West Nile are still there, not catered for properly. West Nile is a marginalized region. Look at the report of the Equal Opportunities Commission. See
how are you through how are you through political parties mobilizing those grievances to agree with you and represent that in through elections?
Okay, I answer that later. The grievances, there are reports like the one of the Equal Opportunities Commission. West Nile is a marginalized area. We are not almost there in the government. You don't see even a single cabinet minister from West Nile there, ministers of state, deputy prime minister, the highest. Moses Sali is a deputy prime minister. That's another rank above the ministers. Now, I thought it was very minister. No. We don't want these things of equivalent. We have ministers of state like Honorable Anite, Honorable Dr. Morris Ukaduchu, etc. Go to the civil service. The whole region with all the intellectuals in West Nile they are in. There is no single permanent secretary who comes from West Nile. Now the whole region, you go there. We've been thinking about power, connecting power. Okay, some parts have been connected recently. Thinking about electricity, but there are many places which have not been connected, like Obonge up to now does not have any single wire of electricity. And there are places, listen to this first, there are places with electric wires, like
Honorable Fungaro, are you not, by going to the general issues, are you not running away from the failure of a political party like the Forum for Democratic Change to organize internally, put those grievances in a context that provides a policy platform for the FDC, provides an ideological platform for the FDC to be able to mobilize the populace to vote for you. You cannot keep.
We have not failed to mobilize.
For a party that is almost 20 years old.
Yes.
This year, which will be 20 years old this year.
Yes.
You cannot mobilize on the basis of general issues without addressing internal organization of your party.
You see, a party must have a foundation. An opposition party must begin from the grievances of the people. You cannot thrive if there are no grievances in the minds of the people. You start from there. Now, for us, we are mobilizing. For example, if you go to the West Nile districts, there are FDC structures, party structures which are there. We had our elections challenges notwithstanding. We put our party structures down to the grassroots. There were 28 districts which remained, which did not hold their party structure elections. And these structures are now going, these internal structures are going on. Recently I was in Amuru, I was in Kitigum, I was in Gulu. These were some of the places we did not do the internal party structure elections, and they are doing this structure. So what do you mean by saying that we are not organizing?
Would you say that you have a base today?
We have.
What is your base?
We have.
What is your base?
Now, across the country, now if you go to TESO, FDC still hold, despite the fact that NRM, the Museveni government has appointed people into the positions of power, like in the cabinet, the vice president, the speaker, etc. From there, the grievances of the TESO people are still strong. The issues, for example, of the cows,
would you say,
the meat packers factory,
what would you say,
the cooperative society.
Yes.
So what would you say, is still in opposition territory.
What would you say is your best today as FDC?
We know where our base is. We don't need to tell you.
They have Kisoro. They have
No.
You're certainly not telling me.
Kisoro has never been our base.
Hold it a minute.
Misrepresented us.
You're not telling me. You're telling Ugandans
yes,
who either support you or would want to support you.
They know it. They know, and we know, and we are doing the mobilization and organization. We are telling you these areas where FDC has been and where there are grievances. These grievances have not reduced. Instead, they have increased. For example, in the area of Acholi, the people of Acholi are still among the very poor people of Uganda. The cows taken away from them have not been returned. Their land is being taken away. A grievance which was not there before. This is of land grabbing. Do you think these people are going to vote for NRM?
Let me go
so
to
for
Opondo.
us,
Yes.
we are confident that FDC is a party that has been in
of grievances.
Yes, opposition must ride on grievances, no celebrations. That's how it is.
Let me move to Ofwono Opondo.
We are coming.
Let me move to Ofwono Opondo.
Yeah.
After the chaotic Kawempe North by-election, which the NRM lost to the National Unity Platform, you authored an article that many considered very candid but also very critical. And basically you said NRM didn't have the strength to win that constituency, and you gave some advice. Has NRM given up on Buganda? Can it remobilize it?
No. First of all, NRM is the only party in the country with the representation in every region, representation by local support, by voters, by elected representatives at all levels. If you go to any district of Buganda, for example, you'll find there is an LC1 chairman who's NRM. You'll find LC3 chairperson or councillors who are NRM. In some districts, you even find councils whose majority is NRM. And NRM goes like that in every district, every region of Uganda. No other party has that. Now, I want to discuss this simultaneously with the issues that my brother Fungaro wants to hanker on. Indeed, FDC has lost the ground precisely because it is a party founded, built, run on grievances. Sometimes grievances that are real, sometimes manufactured, or just perception. You spoke, I listened to you. As a former member of parliament, you know the rules of parliament. When another person speaks, you keep quiet and listen. FDC in particular, let me help my brother Fungaro. You rose from the cooperation of 1996 that supported Semogere of all the UPC, all DP, all the parties. That also supported Kizabesi reform agenda in 2001. And you assumed that support of DP and UPC in the larger part of the East, the larger part of the North. That's why FDC was relatively strong in those regions. Built on the grievances he's talking about. And what were the grievances?
No, before you go deep into the grievances, yes. let's first go back to the NRM.
No.
Your article was titled Kawempe North by-election, NRM, and the fear of the bitter truth. What bitter truth were you referring to?
I will come to that. I will come to that. What were the grievances in those regions? First of all, nostalgia that they had lost power when Milton Obote, UPC, and Lutwa were routed. Two, the subsequent war that followed, and the afflictions that come with the war. The displacement, the suffering, the dispossession, the destruction, the insecurity. When NRM has been solving each of those slowly, gradually, security came back, peace came back, displaced persons camps were removed, and so on and so forth. Social services began to be delivered, though not 100%. NRM began to earn the trust of the people. Consequently, today, NRM enjoys majority in the North broadly. There are pockets in the North and the East where NRM does not enjoy the majority. Lango in particular, I must admit, NRM doesn't enjoy the majority. NRM is now 50-50 in Acholi sub-region. NRM is 68-70 in overall West Nile region. The reason Fungaro and Kasiano Wadri were routed. He can say, we stole their votes. He can say so, no problem, but he was routed.
But he's not there.
Yes, and if you go to Obongi, you will see that NRM enjoys the district council, enjoys the sub-counties, enjoys the village leadership elections. Now, let me come to what you want to discuss. NRM and Kawempe. We were on this show, and I said at that time before the elections that in my assessment, I hadn't paid much attention in Kawempe North. But on the two facts alone, NRM has not won Kawempe North for the last 25 years. The last NRM person there was the late Medical Gwa.
That was South.
Let me say Kawempe. That was
Kawempe,
the last
yes,
person.
because there was no...
And the politics there is about the same. So the last person for the NRM
in Kawempe
was Medical Gwa. I didn't see the political dynamics that had changed that would overwhelmingly favor NRM in a by-election, especially coming on the heels of death of a member of parliament in the circumstances that was. Thirdly, since the routing of NRM in Kampala and in Buganda in the 2021 election, this is my honest assessment, the NRM hasn't done much by way of engaging with the local people, with the voters. And therefore, in my own assessment, I could not see how NRM could possibly have a good show up in Kawempe North by election. Now, what is the bitter truth? The bitter truth, in my assessment, is that I think the longevity NRM has enjoyed, the popularity NRM has enjoyed, and the overwhelming number that NRM enjoys in the country has created complacency, inertia, and a sense of entitlement. And therefore, many NRM people, including some leaders, are not willing to face these truths. That these truths, although self-evident, does not earn an NRM electoral votes. You can enjoy the power, you can enjoy the longevity, you can deliver social services. The years NRM has spent in power can no longer say we have delivered the school, because that's what is expected of a good government. NRM cannot go and say we have done roads. That's what is expected of a good government. Then that means NRM must step back and find out the expectations were raised in the country, not just Kawempe. How do we fulfill them so that the people reward you back? And that's why I said NRM doesn't want to face that bitter truth. That's why you see it's as if the leaders were shocked that they lost Kawempe by the margin they lost. First of all, it was really an embarrassment. The Kawempe registered voters, 199, 197, thereabout, almost 200,000. It's a vote of no confidence when you go for by-election and you make it a high-stakes election like we did in Kawempe North, and only 30,000 turn up. Go and check. Ask my brother, Right Honorable Secretary General of NRM, and Dr. Tango Doi, what's the number of registered voters of NRM in Kawempe North by the current register? Most likely it is more than 50,000. You can check. I have not checked. But most likely it will be more than 50,000. Now, if you ask if you have registered voters, NRM, 50,000, how come that only 8,000 turn up to vote when you have made that election high stakes? So that is the bitter truth. I think there is something we, the NRM leaders, are not willing. I think I want to believe that they know the truth, but they're embarrassed sometimes to admit the truth. Take the
I've been told
yeah,
that...
take the style of campaign. Let me just take it. Let me just
yes,
take
I just wanted to come in with some information on what you just said. I am told that the Central Executive Committee meeting post Kawempe North by-election had some candid discussion that the chairman of the party had been given different information, but the members of SEC were giving him what their version of the truth was. And those seems to be contradicting. They were saying exactly the things you're saying of what happened.
I'm not privy to the discussion is SEC, but even if I was, this is not the platform to say them. I am giving you my personal assessment. I am saying, look at the style of campaign of NRM, not just in Kawempe North, in all the elections we have had, and in particular the recent by-elections. Have you noticed that NRM continues to ferry people? NRM leaders seem to be mercenaries. They hire people from outside constituencies in buses, bus them into Kawempe, as if there are no people in Kawempe to speak to. You can only ferry for psychological purposes. But if you ferry and you have crowds in Kawempe or anywhere else, when you know yourself that the people who are attending your rallies are outside, they are not voters there. 2, you have seen them having tents. You go for public rally and the first you spend money on the tents. 3, you have people being accompanied by musicians, and the lead campaigners are dancing on the rostrum. Yes, singing and dancing is part of political election morale boosting, but shouldn't be the mainstay of the election. Ask if you remember the people who are campaigning, the leaders who are campaigning in the Kawempe, what were they telling people that actually matter to the ordinary voter? Do you remember?
Charles, do you remember?
I am talking about taking the voters for granted. And that's why at the end of that article I said, having led Uganda for 40 years, NRM shouldn't be shifting blame to others. And I said, wash the thick mud on your shoes. Because the mud actually on NRM shoes, on our shoes, is so thick that it needs soaking in water so that probably mud can get off easily. But we are not willing to wash the mud on our shoes. We want it the easy way. The fourth element.
Go and grab some other people's shoes.
Yeah, the fourth element. You have seen the NRM people have introduced, I call it soft money. They lead with money or appearance of money. And that's why I said that's the bitter truth some of those NRM leaders don't want to face. And that's why you see they went to SEC and they made a political decision, in my view. Because if you have a legal stand, it shouldn't be the political organ making the decision to go to court. It should have been based on the advice of the technical team, the legal technical team, having examined the results and the things that accompany the result. And then you say, on the basis of this legal advice, we go to court. You don't make it politically.
Thank you.
Unless the reason for going to court is political. But if it is illegal that you want to challenge electoral results on the basis of legal anomalies, I don't think it is sustainable.
Charles, hold your thoughts. Alban Council says all of them in the studio enjoyed NRM fruits, but Basima Genze and later regrets the peace enjoyed by all parties. Yes, the peace enjoyed by all parties. Kada Mogoa in Kiko Town Council. So many messages here. Whereas Article 73 of the Constitution requires Parliament to regulate the conduct of political organizations subscribing to other systems during the period when one political system is in force in Uganda, this has never been done. 2005 referendum only lifted the ban on political parties. Apart from adding an O on NRM and ballot papers, movement structures and organizations have remained constant. It took 11 years to hold LC1 and LC2 elections under the so-called multi-party system. In fact, in my memorandum to the to Electoral Reforms 2014, I called it GMMS, Genetically Modified Movement System. That's Tom Bojana coming back to the show. Let me see. Ken Mutenyo again says the law dictates that in an election year, all parties receive equal share. In 2021, the NRM colluded with the EC and got more than what they were supposed to get. 4 years later, that issue has not been rectified. Ken Mutenyo. Another view here is Innocent Joshua from Mutungo in Luzera says, kindly let Mr. President direct us where UPC registration book is found in case I want to come and join the party. Could you give him a quick answer? Innocent Joshua.
It's found
Mutungo, Luzira.
It is found by the village structure and the ones holding the registers.
Julius Muchungus is sharing memories with Shaka Sali, and he says, thank you, Shaka, for inspiring us to keep hope alive, always. Thank you. Abiams Wakabi say from the Democratic Party is going to field candidates for all elective positions in Uganda and with 100% win in Busoga, starting with Buzaya County. Abiam Stephen Joseph Wakabi. Let's come back in here. I want to come to you. I'll come to you on the question of the party financing. The clock is ticking. Preparations are on. What you see almost across the country is individuals jostling for positions. What is the place for political parties?
I don't speak for the other political parties, but last week I had an extensive discussion with the Secretary General of NRM. I also had a discussion with the chairman of the Electoral Commission of NRM. And of course I'm in touch with nearly all Central Executive Committee members of the NRM. NRM is going on display verification of its membership come voters register for the next 10 days. I think the Secretary General launched that today. And also the National Electoral Commission is going to display its register because I think by July, the National Electoral Commission should be holding elections for special interest groups from the lower levels going upwards to get the Electoral College, which will elect people into Parliament. And so things are going on, and the parties ought to be updated because they have, I want to believe that every party has a nominee that liaises with the National Electoral Commission. For the NRM, the roadmap is going to be discussed, I think, in the next 1 week or so by SEC to approve that roadmap. But tentatively, NRM internal processes should be starting about June, so that the primaries of NRM will be held at the latest, the first week of July, which then gives it about 2 months, or 1 month and 2 weeks, to resolve any internal disputes that may lead to fallout. And then eventually the last week of August, NRM should be holding the National Delegates Conference, back to back. Back to back means the outgoing elected leaders and the incoming, which should include the flag bearers for members of parliament, flag bearers for district chairpersons who are going for the local government elections, and that national conference should also be able to select the NRM presidential flag bearer. So that is the outline, really, but is going to be issued formally by the Secretary General once SEC approves the draft that they are going to present. And now,
James Salemi here is asking you, what is the fate of NRM without President Yoweri Museveni in the driving seat?
Well, let us wait. I want to believe that I want to believe that we shall not have the unfortunate situation of the Uganda People's Congress, or even of DP, after the death of Milton Obote, after the death of Semogro. Of course, when a leader stays for a very long time, it has its own complications. But depending on the internal dynamics, things can pretty very much be held together. Now, you had talked about blocks. NRM, as I said earlier on, is across the country. Yes, there are areas that were a shocker to us. Buganda was a shock, losing Buganda, particularly President Museveni losing. And we lost also substantially members of parliament. And then we lost the local government, district and sub-counties. It was a shock. There is a team in NRM that has been going around for the last 4 years, trying to find out in detail what went wrong. What is it that we are not doing right, and what should we be doing next? I want to believe, yes, it is difficult, but Buganda is regainable. I want to believe that there are areas that we lost that are going to be regained. Just watch this space. Busoga is a little bit different. Busoga, President Museveni lost. There we have up close to 11 districts. President Museveni lost in about 5 or 4. No, we have more than 70. I think we have 12. President Museveni, 1 in Namayingo, 1, I think, Bijiri, 1 in Namutumba, and 1 in Kaliro. And lost the other districts, which we had never done before. We had lost, President Museveni had always had problems in Jinja. But the other districts were but in Busoga, the situation is different. President Museveni lost the vote, but Busoga returned NRA members of parliament, returned all of them district councils and sub-county councils. It appears to me, and this is even not a secret, not just me, leaders in Busoga, because of the issues there, the army men who they claim were harassing people on the waters, on fisheries, the sugarcane issue, the accusation that we had taken away Ginger industrial base and we shifted it to Buganda in Kampala and so on and so forth, and other issues, the leaders there chose to tell their voters that this was Museveni's problem, these are Museveni's problems, let him deal with it. And that's why Museveni lost, but they came back. And they were not shy, they were speaking about it. Well, I want to believe that we are tackling that issue differently. 2 days ago, I was in a meeting discussing the question of Uganda and Busoga, and I think we are going to recover some, including at the presidential level, even if we were to bring back President Museveni. Now, I'm very shocked that Fungaro on the one side is saying West Nile has no senior people in government, and the areas that have senior people in government like Teso, he is castigating them that they don't represent their people. And yet we are the same person who wants West Nile to have senior people in the government. But you are saying the ones in the Teso, like Anita Mong, like the vice president, now we have the governor Bank of Uganda, although not elected. We have the Auditor General and others. We have the Deputy Chief of Defense Forces from Teso. You are saying they don't represent people. When it comes to show, you say no, they don't represent their people. Are you saying Mao and Owunyidolo don't represent their people? Owunyidolo was an unelected person, was elected for CA, was elected in the 6th Parliament. No. Even in an appointed position, man is a political animal by nature. So, why do you think that actually leaders in government and Teso leaders in government don't represent their people or don't have influence over their people? And you think the ones in actual, and even to say that only actual voters are the ones who are intelligent, and the voters from other parts of the world. No. You are saying actually voters are intelligent, and you are saying the ones in Ankole, you are the one who can speak for them. you have been saying that they don't. First of all, you should.
DC does not have a
Yes.
candidate.
First of all, you should be you who is in the faction of Honorable Nandara Mafabi and Amoriat, who basically told the world are working and are getting support from Seven. You should not be. You are the ones who deal with the NRM at night, and when you come on this show, you can't get. So, but we shall expose you anyway. We shall expose you. We shall expose you. We shall expose you as traitors. But Besigye has ably exposed. Besigye has helped us. So anyway, so anyway, what for mom saying. The fortunes of NRM are very bright, because just remember that 20 years ago when we started NRM, TES was not voting for NRM at presidential, at parliamentary, at local government. Today, you are the one struggling. You are president in Kanyum sub-county. You are President Amriat in Kanyum sub-county, where he comes from. In his own polling station, he lost. You, who's speaking so verbose, we evicted you. After 3 terms in the parliament.
By force.
We evicted you by, yeah, you can say, but even if we can vote, even if we can evict you by force, it means you don't have sufficient roots. That means you don't have sufficient roots.
What happened, for example, in
Honorable Caps, could you allow or make his point so that...
So for me, I'm saying, we are dealing with both the issues the people are raising, the aspirations of the people, but also the programs of the NRM. Where I stand and where we stand, the programs of the NRM, the major programs of the NRM, are programs that touch on the needs of the overwhelming majority. And what are these programs of NRM, which we think are going to make NRM sell better than any other party across the country? One, the questions of national security and stability. That one, no one can beat NRM, no one can beat President Museveni or any other presidential candidates we shall bring. The question of infrastructure, the question of the national economy. Yes, we know that when the economy expands, it creates its own challenges. Today, when we have educated many people, we have created a challenge of unemployment.
Thank you.
For educated people. But that's a better challenge as far as we are concerned.
Thank you.
So NRM is the only party that is capable of tackling serious issues of the country, of sector by sector.
Thank you.
And we are glad. We are glad.
Someone is...
We are glad that even the people who used to oppose NRM so robustly, my brother Kenna, you are the one who said it here. It is not a secret.
Thank you.
Is now working with NRM at strategic level. He's lending NRM his own members to work with NRM. I think Honorable Kenna will find it very difficult to vigorously and particularly throw lies to decampaign NRM, even in Lango.
Thank you.
Yes, he's trying to resurrect UPC there, but it is a contested area and we are going to contest.
Thank you. Someone watching us says, poses a question for us to tackle. Maybe we'll tackle it on another show. Given Uganda's level of development and regional politics, what should be the issues to shape 2026 elections? I think we'll pick this up in a subsequent discussion. Charles, quickly, as we move towards the next general election, looking at the political parties, where do you see the emergence of regional blocks? Are they viable? Should we be discussing them? Or should we be going by what Fungaro has been saying? Mobilize the whole country, mobilize all the grievances.
So you see, for a liberation organization, for an armed political organization, because the NRA is an armed political organization, you operate with, you anchor on the military base, you anchor on your political base. And in Uganda, the political base of NRA is intact. They have Chankwanzi, they have Rakai, they have Sembawere, they have Liantonde, that's the Rwengo, they have, I think, Mubende, Nakasongora, Chiboga. They are not contested. For the other ethnic group, you had some bit of contradictions.
I'm talking about political parties and how they're organizing themselves. You're focusing on the NRM. Yes.
Which other political party? You only have two political parties. You have UPC and DP.
What about there are about 5 that are represented in Parliament? You have NUP, you have
I know
FDC.
this. I know this to be frontline.
Yes.
Yeah, that you discuss substance, you don't discuss form.